Concluding a preliminary investigation, the Integrity Commission has officially launched a full probe into a leaked voice recording said to be that of two high-ranking Tobago House of Assembly officials that were speaking up using public funds in order to fuel a political propaganda campaign. Well, to explore more on this issue, I'm joined by former head of the public service, Mr. Reginald Dumas. He's joining us by telephone this morning. Mr. Dumas, good morning.
Morning. How are you?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you doing?
Well, holding on. Sun is shining for now.
I'm just wondering if the Tobago House of Assembly is expressing similar sentiments this morning.
Expressing what?
Similar sentiments that they too are holding on, trying to survive.
Well, they haven't spoken to me, so I don't know.
Mr. Dumas, what is really going on with this Tobago House of Assembly administration?
Yeah, well, there seem to be a lot of shortfalls, to put it mildly. I don't know. I mean, it's the audio tape, it's the public conflicts between themselves and the central government, and more particularly between the Chief Secretary and the Prime Minister. There are a number of actions, legal actions being brought or contemplated against them, for all of which I imagine the taxpayer has to pay.
Yes.
So it's not a settled situation at all, and it's not it's causing a lot of unease in Tobago, to put it mildly. And there's the whole question of the overall relationship between Tobago and Trinidad, as to what that relationship is looking like and what it could be. And people are a bit unnerved by what they're confronted with.
Mm-hmm. Well, even you yourself sound very frustrated, sir, but into this particular matter of the Integrity Commission's investigation.
I'm not hearing you too clearly.
Could you hear me a bit better now?
Hello?
Mr. Dumas, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm here.
I'm asking you this matter with regards to the Integrity Commission's probe. Could you recall any other time where there's both a police investigation, whether it be the fraud squad, as well as an Integrity Commission investigation into the actions of the Tobago House of Assembly?
No, I certainly cannot recall any such thing. I can't recall any occasion in which there was either body investigating, either the police or the Integrity Commission, let alone both simultaneously. So that's what I'm saying. All of this is creating a lot of unease in Tobago. The audio tape was unfortunate. I don't know who recorded the conversation. I don't know who leaked the conversation. I'm told that it took place a year ago, but that is irrelevant. The point is what was said and what appeared to be contemplated coming out of the conversation. And to have both the police and the Integrity Commission saying simultaneously that they have the authority to investigate and beginning investigations, I mean, is quite remarkable. This is unheard of in my experience, in my recollection. I can't think of any such thing.
Mm-hmm. Given everything that has transpired over the last couple months, which I agree with is rather unfortunate, should we be acting as though we are surprised? I mean, yes, we expected different, and there was a campaign of difference, and we hoped that things would have been different. Should we be surprised at all?
Well, we are surprised. The campaign slogan in 2021 was "Let we fix this," which suggested that things that have been going on with the previous administration were not exactly kosher, to put it mildly, and that you were going to deal with this and to repair all the broken elements that existed, that you said existed. Now comes this. where you have a conversation caught on tape in which two people whose voices appear identifiable, let me put it that way, where two people, two senior members of the Tobago House of Assembly Executive Council, are heard talking about how to use government money, taxpayers' money, in order to promote their party's chances and their party's political chances within the island. Now that is not nice, and gives the lie to any campaign slogan about "Let me fix this." Because what are you fixing? If you are saying that the previous people did not behave themselves properly and they used taxpayers' money to the detriment of the people of Tobago, but to your own benefit, how can you now use the same sort of approach and say that you're fixing something? What are you fixing exactly? And then you have people who they are supporters saying, "Well, everybody does do it." Now, this is remarkable. You talk about a situation which is not good. You vote against a party because you say they're not, they haven't been behaving well. You bring another party in. But because you have brought this other party in and you support this other party, suddenly it becomes all right to do what you were criticizing before and say everybody does do it. What kind of argument is that? Where's the ethical base for such a statement or for such a question? Where? And how does Tobago and by extension Trinidad and Tobago, how do they make progress when you have such an attitude being expressed?
Yes. Well, quite frankly, Mr. Dumas, I don't think there is an ethical base. I don't think that truly exists in the political arena, at least from what we're witnessing taking place in Trinidad and Tobago. But using that notion of what you just put forward there, is this in any way at all, in reality, affecting the image of the THA if such arguments are being made that everybody does this?
Well, of course it must affect the image of the THA. You can't just say everybody does it after you have said that you voted the other people out because they used to do it. I mean, this makes no sense. It's totally contradictory and absurd. So naturally, the image of the THA is adversely affected by this. And with all the lawsuits being brought, people suing the EMAs as the THA in court, the former executive chairman of the Studley Park Enterprises Limited has the THA in court, sent them a pre-action protocol letter. I imagine that others, a certain contractor, I don't know whether they've written yet, but they were promising to do so, also to send a pre-action protocol letter, etc., etc. All this places the THA in a most unfortunate situation and doesn't make Tobago look good at all.
Well, just moving forward a bit with regards to the situation that was with the THA chief administrator, this political war of words between the Prime Minister and the Chief Secretary, it seems to have settled now that an administrator has been appointed. But all this time, it took quite some time to actually get this done. Was this political war of words necessary in order to fuel, I suppose, some excuse from both sides for this not being able to get done? In other words, we have to thrash each other's image to justify why the people of Tobago have been, well, I suppose, been treated unfairly.
Well, the political war, if one is following the THA Act and the Constitution, which is the highest law of the land, on the face of it, there would be absolutely no need for such a political war of words. As a matter of fact, again, I don't know that this has ever happened in the past. but this whole thing became politicized because it was felt that this, by one side or the other, that someone was being proposed because he or she could be relied upon to act in a certain way, and so on. So it puts the person who's finally chosen, and someone has been chosen now to act as administrator, chief administrator, puts that person in a very awkward situation, because when you have this public battle between the two sides as to what was meant and who was put up and why the person was put up or withdrawn or whatever it is, you bring the party politics into the matter, and that is something that you ought not to do when you're dealing with a public servant. It doesn't make life any better, because again there'd be suspicions as to why certain persons were omitted, why certain persons were chosen, etc., etc., and it would be felt that it was being done or has been done on a party political basis. That is very unfortunate, because the public servant is supposed to stay out of all of this. I mean, I have been a public servant myself, so I can tell. I mean, there are times when a minister would tell you, I want you to do such and such, and you say, well, no, I really can't do such and such, because it's against the rules. And the minister will say, well, I am in control here. I'm telling you to do such and such. And you say, well, then, okay, minister, put it down in writing. Put your instruction in writing.
Yes.
At which point, the minister tends to back off. Because the minister knows that what he's asking you to do is not correct.
Yeah.
Of course, the society being what it is, minister will then go about maligning you behind your back. And going to the Prime Minister and saying, I want, this permanent secretary is giving a lot of trouble, and so on. As I had to face when I was head of the public service, where I don't want to go into detail and call any names or anything like this, but where it has happened that I've been asked to remove a certain permanent secretary from the particular ministry because the minister can't work with the permanent secretary. Not because the permanent secretary is doing anything wrong, but because the minister has complained about the permanent secretary.
Yes, yes.
Now you do what you can, but it causes difficulty and bad blood.
I wonder, Mr. Dumas, whether or not such public servants still exist with regard to being able to say no to a minister. Even what you just said, put it in writing, But moving forward, if this is the case, what we're seeing taking place in Tobago, we cannot say for certain that it has politicized the office, but we could suggest the possibilities that it has or will lead to such, and that is the office of the THA Chief Administrator. Now that one has been appointed, there is a possibility that we have politicians acting as public servants.
I hope not, because that would be very much against the law. You see, in these small societies, it's not peculiar to Trinidad and Tobago. You find it throughout the Caribbean, and you find it in small societies generally throughout the world. You have politicians who go about thinking and persuading themselves that they are in control. As a matter of fact, the word control is actually used. If you look at the Constitution, if you look at Section 85, subsection 1 of the Constitution, where there's the relationship between minister and permanent secretary is defined, you will see that the minister is responsible for the direction, the general general direction and control of the ministry. And the permanent secretary is responsible for the supervision.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. I keep telling people this, and it's something I first raised many decades ago with the late George Chambers, and I've raised it with every single prime minister since. But nothing has happened because I think they like it so. The permanent secretary under our constitution is constitutionally empowered not to manage. You know, we keep hearing about the permanent secretaries don't manage their ministries properly. You show me the word management or manager or manage in the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, if we're moving forward now, sir, with this conversation and what is really taking place in Tobago, you've said that what we've seen even with the campaign slogan, that we fix this, so then what it is you're really fixing, if we now are making the excuses, well, people did this before, administrations did this before. Is it that this particular administration, however you like to refer to it, Farley Gustin-led, Tobago People's Party-led, former PDP-led, whatever it is being referred to?
Is it not what, sorry?
Whatever this administration is referring to themselves to, whether it be the Farley Augustine-led administration, an ex-PDP administration, a Tobago People's Party administration, is it that they've just proven, is it that they have proven or are proving themselves to be no different to any other administration that has led the THA previously, or any other political party, or any individual that they've campaigned against?
Well, if you compare this administration, and by the way, I'm glad you raised this thing about the Tobago People's Party, because that was supposed to be formed. Mm-hmm. We heard that there was going to be a Tobago People's Party, and then we heard nothing more about it.
We also heard there was going to be a...
Yet. So you have, on the face of it, you have an administration of independence, which is unique in Trinidad and Tobago. It's not against the law. You might have it. You can't have it in the central government. You have to have a party. But in the THA, you can have it, and we do have it. This is an administration of independence. You ask if they're any different from any administration we've gone before. I think they are different. I don't think that you would have found this kind of thing in an administration headed by the late A.N.R. Robinson, for instance. And he was the first chairman, as they called it at the time, chief secretary. That phrase came later in 1996. But when they had the restored THA in 1980, and Robinson was the first chairman, I don't think you would have had this kind of thing, quite frankly. Mm-hmm. So it's embarrassing, and a lot of people in Tobago are, quite frankly, embarrassed by what is seen as a slide into areas that ought not to be explored, that one ought not, that an administration here ought not to get itself in. Mm-hmm. And it's causing awkwardness. As I say, you have all these lawsuits and letters of pre-action protocol letters and flying about the place, etc., etc. The relationship between the central government and... Yes, in the past you've had difficulties between the central government and the THA, for instance, between Robinson and Williams and Chambers. Yes, that is true. And the matter even went to court. Robinson even, I remember the first THA Act in 1980, Robinson actually took the government to court and lost. You have had difficulties. You have had difficulties between Ho Choy Charles and Basile Bande, for instance. But I don't think we've had quite the sort of difficulty that we have been facing in the last few weeks, last month or so, between the THA and the central government. And even where the budget statement is concerned, the THA budget was read a few days ago, and you've had the Minister of Finance subsequently saying that publicly that the THA Chief Secretary, who read the budget as Secretary of Finance, is a stranger to the truth, which is a polite way of saying that he's lying. So, no, we haven't had this kind of thing before, and it's awkward. It's embarrassing. It's not only embarrassing; it's also counterproductive, because I don't see how Tobago benefits from all of this, and I hope it can come to an end soon.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, we also heard that there was going to be a reshuffle within the THA. That in itself.
The reshuffle was announced a long time ago. The Chief Secretary said he was going to reshuffle the cabinet by the end of February.
And that
We're now in July.
Yeah. Yeah. So lots of things have been said. None of it has actually materialized. And
that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all very well to talk and to say you're going to do this and you're going to do that, but has it been done?
Yeah.
And the answer is no.
So then the question is Mr. Dumas, what is next? I mean, we've heard suggestions from those in the political arena that Amplia Augustine has proven himself as an individual who cannot keep his promises, who goes against his own word. He should resign. I mean, that came from Watson Duke. We've heard from Ansel Dennis. We've heard from Kelvin Morris. But, what's next?
Well, you expect the political opponents to say that
of course.
They should resign. But let me put it this way. If I'm speaking purely personally as a non-political person, I don't belong to any political party. If the results of the investigations being carried out by the police and the Integrity Commission indicate clearly that the audio tape shows a violation of the law. In other words, that there was, on the face of it, a conspiracy to commit a corrupt act. If that happens, then it would seem to be that the credibility of the current Tobago House of Assembly will have come to an end. I mean, it's shaky enough at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And that the only respectable thing to do would be to return to the polls.
Interesting. Mr. Dumas, I want to thank you very much for joining me this morning. I know previously you've actually hesitated with respect to an election in Tobago because we've had conversations before, but the mere fact that you said if anything comes out of this investigation, that suggests...
I don't know that anything will.
Stressing the word if.
Tell you
No, you're absolutely correct.
And the Integrity Commission will do. But if, because it would appear to me at that point that the THA would have no moral or ethical right to continue without let or hindrance.
Yes. Mr. Dumas, thank you very much for joining me this morning for this conversation. And appreciate to be updated as to exactly what's taking place, even with what is being expressed with regard to, a defense about this has other administrations have done it. But as you said, you yourself cannot recall a time where the Integrity Commission, as well as the police service, are both conducting investigations into something coming from the THA. I can't recall as well. But keep well, sir, and all the very best.
Thank you very much.
Have a good day.